In this video, we will show you how to replace your AC condenser on this Kia Forte Koup. This will be located behind your front bumper cover. Let's get into it. A quick note, when replacing your AC condenser, you have to have a professional evacuate the AC refrigerant. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. We're going to have to drain the cooling system to be able to remove the AC condenser. So with that said, make sure your engine and your cooling system is cool to the touch. We're over at the radiator cap on the driver's side. Assuming it is cool, go ahead and carefully press it down, turn it counterclockwise, and lift it up and away from your face. A quick inspection of the seal on your cap, and we'll set that aside. At this point, we need to safely make our way underneath the passenger side of the vehicle so we can locate the drain on the bottom of the radiator. We'll make sure we have a collection receptacle under the area so we can recycle or reuse the coolant as necessary. Along the passenger side of the radiator, this port right here is where the coolant will come out of. Just above it is where you're going to find the port where we're going to have to turn this plug counterclockwise to be able to start draining the coolant. Just make my way up along the side. Let's allow the coolant to drain. You can either wait for the coolant to finish draining or let it keep draining, but we're going to make our way back up inside the engine compartment. It's time to start removing the air inlet tube here. To remove this, there's two 10mm headed mounting bolts. Once you have that removed, we're going to take hold of it and we can lift this whole thing up and out of place. We'll just give this a quick inspection and we'll set it aside. Now we're going to start removing the upper radiator hose from the radiator. It's important to make sure that the coolant has at least drained lower than this point before you start removing this hose. To remove the hose, typically you're going to find a squeezable clamp. If you have that, you can use some hose pliers or just some regular pliers. We'll squeeze on that clamp, slide it down the hose just enough that it's not making any contact with where the radiator would be, which comes to approximately here. At this point, we'll pull this out of place and then rest it off towards the driver's side of the vehicle, trying to make sure that no coolant makes its way out and makes a mess. With the hose out of the way, let's remove the mounting bracket. We have a 10mm headed bolt. Moving along from there, we're heading towards the driver's side of the radiator where the filler neck is. We have to disconnect the overflow hose. Once you have that disconnected, just give it a quick squeeze, make sure it's soft and pliable, not torn, worn, or damaged. Let's move just below that area. You're going to find an electrical connector for your fan assembly. Squeeze in on the locking tab, disconnect it, a quick inspection for corrosion, and we'll set that aside. Before we start pulling the fan out of place, the next thing I like to do is disconnect the upper radiator mounting points. You're going to find the same exact thing on each side of the vehicle. What we're looking for is underneath this area, you're going to find a 10mm headed mounting bolt, and that's going to be on each side of the radiator. Let's go ahead and remove that bolt. There's that. Quick inspection, set it aside. Once you have the bolt out, repeat the process on the other side. There's that one. With both of those mounting bolts out of place, take hold of the fan assembly and the radiator, and we're going to gently start pressing it towards the engine. After that, we can remove both of the mounts from along the top. Just slide that right out of there. We'll inspect both of these. That looks good as well. Now to lift the fan up and out of here, we're going to have to pay attention along each side of the fan shroud. Attached to the radiator, there's a couple locking clips, one on each side. You want to carefully pull that away from the fan and gently lift up on the fan while doing so. Once you have one side dislodged, go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other. At this point, we should be able to lift up on the fan assembly and remove it from the vehicle. You may have to twist and turn and gently try to pry it up and out. As we start lifting this up and out of here, those tabs may go underneath certain things, like maybe the filler neck on the radiator itself, or even on the other side of the radiator where the upper radiator hose would be. We'll just have to gently continue on by lifting this up and out of here, being aware of all these things. Take our time on this, we're not trying to break anything. A quick inspection of the fan assembly and we'll set this aside. With the fan out of position, let's focus along the passenger side of the radiator. You're going to find your AC lines. We need to disconnect those from the AC condenser, and these are held in place with two 10mm headed mounting nuts. There's one of them right there. Let's get the second one. At this point, hold the AC condenser and radiator, wiggle the lines, and carefully lift them up and off of the AC condenser. Now we can start pushing the radiator towards the engine. If you need to, you could lift up on it to dislodge the lower aspect. But for now, what we need to pay attention to is right down in this area here, along the front of the radiator and the AC condenser, you're going to find a plastic locking tab. We need to gently pry that away from the AC condenser and lift up on the AC condenser at the same time. Once you have one side dislodged, do the exact same thing on the other side. Let's try getting this out of here. There it is, friend. With the AC condenser out of the way, we'll pay attention along the top, both sides of the radiator. We have our locking clips. You want to make sure those are in good condition. Making your way down from under there. These are just mounting points. They should be hooked, but they are not locking type. So you just want to make sure that you can slide it inside there. It's not obstructed in any way. After you've confirmed both sides, go ahead and have a look along the back passenger side of the radiator. We're going to close the drain while we're up here. We'll just reach right down along the bottom there and tighten it up. Let's gain focus on our brand new AC condenser. We're going to look at the area where our AC lines will connect onto. Typically, you're going to have some covers on this area because you never want to leave your AC system open for any length of time. To remove either of these caps, we're going to use a 10mm. When you go to remove them, you might start hearing a hissing sound. That's due to the fact that these typically are pressurized. Just get this cap off of here. We'll set those aside for recycling. Beneath the metal portion, typically there's going to be a rubber stopper here. We'll just pry that right out of place. Set that aside as well. There's one. Let's do the exact same thing to the other port here. That one, the rubber stopper came out with it. The next thing we need to do is install 1 ounce of clean PAG oil into the port before we install this. Now I've got 1 ounce of clean PAG oil. We'll put this directly into the port, let it make its way into the AC condenser. Once you've installed the PAG oil, the next thing we need to do is install our brand new studs. Go ahead and start both of these in by hand, and you can bottom them out. Continuing from there, we're going to install two 10mm headed mounting nuts. Go ahead and start one of them onto your stud. Take a second mounting nut and bottom it out directly against the first one here. Once you have both of them locked together, we can continue on snugging both of our studs. To do this, we'll use a 10mm wrench for the bottom nut and a 10mm socket along the top. Now we can tighten this. We're watching the shanked area go down into the AC condenser. Once this bottoms out, we'll repeat the process for the other mounting stud. Right there is bottomed out. We don't want to strip anything. We just want to make sure it's nice and tight. To remove this, we're going to hold onto the bottom mounting nut and turn the upper mounting nut counterclockwise to break it free. With those broken free, we can remove the nuts, swap them over to the other stud, repeat the process. Remove our nuts. Let's get this over to the vehicle. As we start bringing this into position, we need to align our alignment tabs along the bottom of the AC condenser and the radiator there, but we also need to slide the upper tabs into their locking positions. We'll be paying attention to all of this as we continue. I can see down in this area, I have my lower alignment tabs properly aligned on both sides. So what we need to do here is carefully lift up just enough that we can press this towards the radiator, and we're also going to make sure we slide the upper tabs into their locked position. There we are. Let's press both of these together here. Listen for a click. Now I'm going to hold down on the radiator and lift up on the AC condenser, being careful not to cause any damage. Once you're sure you're secure, we can move along. Let's quickly have a look at the bottom area of the fittings on each one of our AC lines before we start putting these into place. You're going to find you have a circular O-ring gasket. It's a good idea to remove these, inspect them, and replace them with brand new ones. We also want to inspect the line once it is off of there. Just use a small pick for this. Should be able to roll it right off of there. Quick inspection of that O-ring. Now that we have the O-ring off of there, go ahead and inspect the line. Make sure it doesn't look like it's damaged in any way. After we've inspected it, we've got our brand new O-ring. I'm just going to slide this right on here. Once you have both of them installed, we're going to lubricate them with some of that clean PAG oil. That one looks great. Let's do the exact same thing to the other line. There's that one. Quick inspection of the line. Let's get our new O-ring gasket on there. It's on as far as possible. Now I've got some clean PAG oil on a gloved finger. Just lubricate both of those O-rings. This will help it slide into place easily. With both those lines cleaned and well lubricated, we'll continue on with installing them into the AC condenser here. We'll just wiggle things around as necessary, slide it into position. Just going to start on the 10mm headed mounting nut, bottom it out. We'll just bottom that out for now. Same process for the other line. Let's get the mounting nut on there. With both of those bottomed out, I'm going to torque those to 80 inch-pounds. Continuing from here, it's time to reinstall the fan. Before we bring it down into position, make sure along the back side of the radiator, both of the upper locking tabs are in good condition, one on each side, and then same thing for the locating tabs. You're going to have one on each side for those as well. Now, when installing the fan, we want to be very careful not to cause any damage to the fan or the radiator. Take your time on this. With it slid down, now we can start readjusting it, making sure it's inside of all of its alignment points and locked in along the top. Just lift this up, press it towards the radiator as far as possible here. Align it, press it down. Go ahead and take hold of that, holding onto the radiator, and we'll give it a wiggle on both sides, ensuring that it's properly secured to the radiator. Now it's time to resecure the radiator assembly in place. We'll be using the upper mounts for this. Along the bottom of the mount, you're going to find a port, and that's for the corner of the radiator to fit into. Once we have both of these onto the radiator, we'll carefully start pressing the entire thing in. That one lined up. Let's press it in. Continue on with your 10mm bolt, holding each of these in place. Same process on the other side. There we are. Moving just below the filler neck, we're going to resecure our fan wiring harness. Go ahead and press that in, listen for a click. Now let's move up to that filler neck. We're going to resecure our overflow hose. Just go ahead and press that right onto the top of the radiator. Press that in as well. Now we'll move towards the center. We're going to reinstall our upper radiator hose mounting point here. We have a small 10mm bolt for that. Let's get this on there. Now let's start bringing the upper radiator hose into place. All the way on the passenger side of the radiator. Press that on until it's completely bottomed out. Reinstall your clamp. Take hold of the hose, give it a wiggle, make sure it's properly secured to the radiator. Back in the center, we're going to ensure it's inside the mounting point. You just want to squeeze it and press it down and in. Now let's install our air inlet tube. When we slide this into place, we'll make sure it fits onto the air filter housing and start in our two 10mm headed mounting bolts. Snug those up. Now it's time to fill the cooling system. We'll be using the manufacturer's specified coolant, and of course you do want to make sure it is 50-50 mixed and not a concentrate. To fill this, you can do it several different ways. One of the most common is to use a funnel like this right here. You would just find the adapter that fits onto place, give it a wiggle, make sure it's properly secured. We don't want to spill anything here. Typically you're going to have some sort of stopper. And now we're going to use the manufacturer coolant. Once you feel as though all the air is burped out of the system, the next thing that's always a good idea is to go ahead and run the vehicle for a short while. We want to try to burp out any air that's in the system, so you want to let the car get up to normal operating temperature, allow the thermostat to open, the cooling fans will turn on. At that point, pay attention in this area. Once you find that all the air bubbles have made their way out of the system, you can go ahead and cap it off. After that, go ahead and remove your tool. With the cooling system full, go ahead and reinstall your coolant cap and make sure everything's nice and clean. Okay friend, we finished our installation. The last thing you need to do is go ahead and have a professional recharge your AC refrigerant. After that, go ahead and test the functionality. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.